because there was nothing intermediate about these children in terms of their playing. They just all owned their instruments for a year. That was their criteria for being an intermediate band. And just to give you a flavor of what this class was like, there was a girl who played flute in the class, about 26, 27 kids and stuff. There was a girl who played flute, and she kind of looked like that when she played. Now, even if you haven't had flute methods class, you know that's not good. And she could play G to C in the first octave on a flute. That was her entire repertoire of pitches that she could play after a year of flute playing, right? There was a trumpet player whose face was so tense and his teeth were so clenched that the notes that came out of his instrument were so short, if you were looking away, you wouldn't know what was making that sound. You know? It was kind of, I mean, sometimes I work with a clarinet and he'd play a note, and I look at the intercom. I thought maybe the principal and I'll just tell you one other kid that kind of makes this point. There's a kid named Larry who played the trombone, and no one in a year had told him about using his tongue to articulate pitches. You know? So he played very portamento all the time when he played trombone. He was very connected. So anyway, so that's kind of the flavor of this class. The class wasn't fun for anybody. It certainly wasn't fun for me. I was teaching them out of a method book that they had already been through once, and we were going to go through it again because they couldn't do anything in it. And the method book was called Master Method for Band, just horrible book. I think it might be out of print by now. It should have been called Taskmaster Method for Band. You know. But anyway, so they're playing out of this book, and every day, you know, some kid would come up to me, breathless, because you know, junior high kids are always breathless. You know, they say, "Mr. Are we going to play today?" You know, just hoping that I would say, "No, we're going to read a book." Man, get your instrument, for God's sake. You know. Anyway, they come and get ready to play. You know. So, you know, I'd be banging through this book, and the book was horrible, and it had just whole notes and half notes and things in it. It was just not good. And what I found myself doing as the year was going on is that I was inadvertently, I mean, I really wasn't intending to do this, but I sort of noticed it halfway through October, that I would have been giving them longer and longer to put their instruments away at the end of the class. So by October, I was up to about 20 minutes of swabbing, and, you know, I was still wet. Just because we didn't have to make any sounds. It was just great, you know. So of course, you know, they would do that, and they would get all their instruments, you know, cleaned up, and then they'd be pushed up against the door, you know, and I had those big metal doors with a bar and a little, you know, prison window with a wire mesh so nobody could squeeze a fifth grader through there, you know. And then he'd push up against the door, and the principal would be mad at me if they went out in the hall before the bell rang, you know. I'd say, "No, the hall, the bell rang, you know, we won't," and then the door would open, you know. This is horrible. But anyway, this is like every day of my life in third period is just awful. And so anyway, so one day I had to put their instruments away, and this tenor saxophone player goes back in the instrument room and starts playing Louie Louie on his tenor saxophone. Not the melody, just the bass part. So he's back in the direction going, "Fue, fue, 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 fue." So, you know, I mean, pianists play heart and soul, tenor saxophone players play the bass part. So anyway, so he's doing this thing repeatedly, and everybody else is pushed up against the door. "Go to the hall, we won't," you know. So anyway, so Tim, the trumpet player, goes in their room, and he asks the tenor saxophone player what he's playing. Now, I got to tell you, if these instruments had not been in the same transposition, I would now be an attorney. So Tim says to the tenor saxophone player, "Say, hey man, what are you playing?" And the tenor saxophone player says, "I don't know." And he says, "Well, what notes are you playing?" So the tenor sax player kid teaches Tim how to play the bass parts of Louie Louie. You know? So now they're back there jamming together, right? So the tenor's like, so they're doing this already, you know, it's just great. So anyway, bell finally rings, kids burst out the door to go to history or where the hell we're going, right? And they're still in the instrument room playing, you know? And I had to make them put their horns away and go to class. Now, you know, I'm a quick study, so I went home that night and I wrote out Louie Louie for the whole class, you know. Not the melody, just the bass part, right? And we played that as a class all the next day. And I taught more in that day than I taught in the 6 weeks leading up to that day. right? I taught Tim that he could actually spread his teeth apart and air would go into the trumpet and you would hear pitches, that were discernible, and Larry, the trombone player, who's desperately trying to re-articulate those three notes without using his tongue, was going, I said, Larry, if you put your tongue in front of the air, you'll hear notes come out of it, cool. Anyway, and I brought a trumpet and I played the melody, while they're all playing the accompaniment. It was very cool, And of course, about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through the class, a tenor saxophone player who started this whole thing, whereas he said, hey, Mr. Duke, what notes are you playing? Now, that's the first time that anybody in the room had the slightest bit of interest in anything I had to teach them, right? And the reason for it is that for the first time in that school year, we were actually making what the students considered to be music. Now, this is not a thing between, popular music and serious music, because at the time this is happening, Louie wasn't that popular, and National Method for Band ain't that serious. So that's not my point. My point is, all those students had signed up for band class with the bizarre expectation that they were going to make music every day. And I was busy teaching them how to play. So we weren't making, I was teaching them how to play their instruments. Now, again, you ask the question, well, why aren't they making music every day? Well, I, at that point in my young career, believed that, you're not ready for that yet. You've got to get all these skills down first, and then we'll start making music. And as I was saying yesterday, talking about my own grandchildren and children there's lots of expressivity in human beings that now the goal for us is to teach them how to make that come through an instrument, whatever the instrument happens to be. So, all that by way of transition to what's in this